Excellent. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Sarah, for that lovely introduction. Much appreciated. It was a bit of a mouthful there for sure. So great to be here. Thank you for having me. Again, we're excited to be part of this group of like-minded independent dentists. And of course, we work with hundreds of independents coast to coast. So, Best for Dentistry docs are actually the only ones. We have an exclusive relationship with Best where all docs participating with Best for Dentistry also receive Zebra at no charge with their marketing programs. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But for right now, welcome to Ahead of the Rest with Zebra and Best. It has a bit of a catchy ring to it. And the 7 surprising metrics to gain production and boost profitability that successful independents are looking at right now. So I know that I believe I have in the range of about 30 to 45 minutes. I'd like to bring your attention to perhaps some of the lesser known, but also very important metrics and data points that, if acted upon, really can drive a significant additional production value. So first of all, Patient News and Practice Zebra. I hope many of you know Patient News. We've been around for quite a while, exclusively dental, and for 27 years in the dental industry. We've worked with more than 7,000 dentists, and we've analyzed more than 50,000 dental marketing campaigns. And when I say dental marketing campaigns, I'm talking all things digital, social campaigns, websites, paid media, as well as print. We own our own print facility too. So we also are connected with more than 1,000 practices through their practice management software with integration right into Practice Zebra. So all of the data points that I'll be referencing today are real data from practices coast to coast. Back in 2017, we hired a chief technology officer, and he has been instrumental in transforming our business model, essentially. He really brought modern methodologies, including artificial intelligence, mobile and business intelligence, all to the development of Zebra. So again, it'll be actual client data. So the agenda today, we'll briefly talk about 7 of the macro trends in dentistry. So good to take just a step back. 2020 production and what that COVID gap was looking like. We'll look at 3 of those macro trends that have actually been amplified through COVID, the common denominator, 7 surprising metrics, and getting and staying ahead of the curve. So in terms of these macro trends in dentistry in the year 2020, so US dental spending is projected to increase from 203 billion to 203 billion by 2027. So the supply of full-time dentists is also expected to increase steadily, and this is coupled with further industry consolidation and a little bit slowing population growth. There's going to be a doubling of the dental practice management software industry. So things like scheduling, patient communications, invoicing, billing, payment processing, insurance management, and analytics, just huge growth in that model. Continued development of digital technologies and dental technologies, things like the lasers, 3D printing, all of the dental apps. There's a continued rise of relationship dentistry and the greater public awareness of that mouth-body connection, as well as increased patient financing options and flexibility. So more in-house and third-party dental savings plans and membership plans. And finally, an emphasis on cross-channel promotion, patient engagement, and review. So these are some of the big, exciting trends in dentistry, and we'll move forward with that. So while dental spending is expected to increase, it's at a bit of a slower pace than the healthcare sector, but 34% in healthcare to 31% in dental, but still strong. We are in an amazing industry, and we're all very fortunate for that. So Dental school grads are trending upwards right through 2022. Beyond that, there's a few more assumptions. It'll be interesting to see where enrollment does go as tuition continues to increase, and there's other sort of barriers to entry. With more grads means there'll be more dentists per 100,000 moving forward. This could be a little bit more exacerbated in the short term with the COVID pressures. There may be some fewer outflows or retiring dentists, but perhaps a little bit more increased industry competitive. But again, these are some of the macro trends. What we really want to know is what is happening now. And we do know that in the short to midterm, there's still a lot of uncertainty and some varying assumptions. Regionality certainly is going to play a factor, but we're still dealing with that COVID trajectory and the potential impacts as cases reach sort of new peak levels around the country. And this, of course, does cause continued uncertainty. According to the ADA, while 80% of patients who regularly visit the dentist have been back or intend to in the near term, there's still some of those risk-averse patients in the mix. And as at October end, access to PPE was a less reported issue than it had been earlier in the pandemic. But again, as cases continue to climb, so could the challenge of availability and PPE staffing, et cetera. And of course, we are now having to accommodate some new safety and sanitation protocols. And this has resulted in some longer appointment times, increased pressures on capacity in some instances. And you wouldn't know it from the stock market very recently, but we're also now dealing with some continued economic uncertainty and future forward impacts of unemployment. And of course, there was a definitive interruption in new patient flow in the late spring with our practice closures. So right now in Zebra, we're also seeing 5% fewer active clients scheduled compared to this same time in November of 2019. As a marketing agency, our clients generally are a bit ahead of the curve. So this could be a little bit overly optimistic, comparatively speaking. But the good news is, we are back and we survived. Many will thrive, and you can too. Dentistry is resilient, and you're probably going to be thriving if you're here with us today. So in fact, of all of these small to medium-sized businesses that have been negatively impacted by COVID, healthcare, including dentistry, is expected to make one of the strongest and fastest recoveries, estimated here by McKinsey and Company as soon as 2021, and we're seeing some of this trending now. So this compared to many others like the arts, entertainment, food services, accommodation, with a protracted recovery as late as 2024, 2025. Doesn't mean there isn't going to still be a little bit more downward pressure on production. For sure, there'll be a bit more pain for some practices more than others, but you can definitely be ahead of the curve. And it starts with a mindset of positivity. And again, I'm sure that's why you're here today. So very quickly in Zebra speak, this is a representation of 2020. We were on a beautiful course trajectory, January through early March. We fell apart in April, and now we're back on track largely through the summer months and into the fall, which is the great news, 2020 in rear view. So this is a graphical representation of 14 months in trailing production, so a little more than a year. And this is an exciting case in point to share about the resiliency of our industry. So you can see here, you're looking at production from September of 2019 right through October of 2020. And this is from the hundreds of practices that are connected in Zebra. So there's two earlier gaps in production, smaller gaps in production, and these correlate to the weeks of November 24th and Thanksgiving. So we're circling back around to that again right now. And the weeks of December 22nd and 29th. So the Christmas and New Year's period, those are very typical. And then we see that ugly COVID gap spanning those weeks of March 15th through June 7th. So The good news is Patient News clients were back up to 100% production through the summer months and now right into the fall. So I've noted here what's been reported by the ADA in terms of patient volume. And that was as at October, 78% by way of comparison. So to date, in terms of industry recovery, we are doing very, very well, which is amazing. And I would like to just highlight the fall production in particular. There was a lot of doom speak and a lot of, some kind of scary predictions as to what was going to happen in the fall season. But what's even more exciting here is September through November results. So right up to current day, or close to, actually, I pulled this data November 7th. But when isolating this time period and comparing year over year, you'll see that production has not only recovered, but the fall session has so far surpassed the previous year, and pretty consistently through September and October by a margin of 10% or so. So why and how is this possible given this COVID environment? Again, there was a lot of doom speak and some dire predictions around the fall production. This is not the same picture for every practice, no doubt. Again, these are all practices connected to Zebra, so it's our client universe. But the point is, it was entirely doable, and it still is moving forward. You can still be ahead of that COVID curve. You will see, though, that the gap is narrowing. And it's showing just slightly below par as of November 7th, or week 45 in the year from January to year end. So there is still work to be done moving forward to continue to mitigate the COVID-19 and economic risks. So let's just take a step back again quickly to those mega trends and see how some of those mega trends have been amplified through COVID and the impact that could be having and what we can do about it. So many of those macro trends have really only been amplified in light of COVID. And in particular, I highlighted 3 here that are within our scope, but very importantly within your control. So from these, we'll pull those 7 surprising metrics that you'll want to pay attention to, and that will help you and your team to focus on and prioritize on things that will be impactful. So the first amplified trend through COVID, this is the move away from transactional dentistry to relationship dentistry. This was a thing pre-COVID, and it's even more of a thing now. And why is that? Of course, with COVID, people have a renewed interest, potentially even a laser focus interest on their health and wellness. And there's also an increased awareness of the mouth-body connection. You can't fight COVID if you're fighting gum disease or other associated illnesses. So people are getting that message, which is, super fantastic. We're also living in an age of misinformation in the news, on the social channels. It's really getting harder and harder to figure out what's real. And this is leading to increased consumer skepticism. And we're living more and more on our smartphones and other devices. There's a growing sense of personal disconnection. So dental patients more than ever really are in need of reassurance, and especially those risk-averse patients who we talked about who have not yet been seen. So you need to be thinking about how are you keeping your patients safe. They need accurate information, and they want a stronger bond and a better relationship with you as their service provider. So what does make for a great relationship? What's the foundation of a relationship? It doesn't matter if it's a doctor-patient relationship, doctor-team, husband-wife, husband-husband, friend-friend. According to Psychology Today, identified here, it's all the same. Trust, honesty, communication, transparency, respect, and also, thankfully, humor is also an important part of a great relationship. So from a dentistry perspective, we can take these relationship elements, carefully consider them, and incorporate them into our servicing model and our marketing messaging. So Our Director of Sales, Director of Digital Operations, Grant Gooley, just recently completed his marketing MBA. And in a recent presentation, he reminded me of good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You may be familiar with this. The famous philosopher and psychologist Abraham Maslow, he argued that humans couldn't move up the ladder towards self-actualization unless those basic needs were met first. So in other words, your patients can't move up the ladder, i.e. accepting higher value treatments, if their basic needs aren't met, or more accurately, are perceived not to have been met. So safety and personal and financial security and other basics do come first. And we need to be mindful of that. So fast forward from Maslow and 1943 to current day. And in a study for Harvard Business Review, a group of top marketing professionals translated Maslow's hierarchy to incorporate more modern day elements of value. So the study really proved that the right combination of value drivers in your marketing messaging results in stronger customer loyalty, patient loyalty, higher customer or patient conversion, and sustained growth. So you can use these value drivers to enhance your patient communications and your patient relationships. So that's amplified trend number one. Number two, another amplified trend through COVID, in-house membership plans. So pre-COVID, dental membership plans or savings plans were really taking off, both in-house and third-party providers. So many dentists were looking for more control, to move away from an insurance-based model. So why has this been amplified? Well, of course, there's the continued economic uncertainty. There's been reduced employer benefits, increased rates of unemployment. There's actually been predicted to be additional reductions in insurance reimbursements, and there's been some news about this fairly recently. Also, an increasing awareness of the higher value of dental membership plan patients. And the cost of dental treatment is an often cited patient objection, or rather, again, the perceived cost value. So Malcolm Gladwell would say you need to find the tipping point in patient onboarding, adoption, and case acceptance. And that tipping point for you could be your dental membership plan. So amplified trend number three, we've got the move away from transactional to relationship dentistry. Another trend here is the cross-channel marketing. And why is cross-channel marketing more of a thing now? So simply put, it's a more complex patient journey. So it requires an increased number of patient touch points to build that trust today and to better manage those relationships. So there's also now a lot better channel attribution and ROI analysis. So things like address and phone number matching and practice management software integration that ties campaign spend directly to patient spend and delivers a stronger view and rationalization and look at your ROI. Direct mail, we're a mailing full suite agency, so I need to talk about mail. So of course, mail is in secular decline. We're not getting our bills in the mail anymore, but what we are getting is great and valuable information. So mail reaches every patient and every targeted household and is delivering significant returns. And that's an area that we cut our teeth on, Patient News, and is a true differentiator for us as well. New patients also want and of course rely on those reviews, and especially those recent reviews. It's a constant cycle of building that review funnel and output. So for years, kind of that traditional media really reigned supreme, but then came the digital revolution. And for some time, marketers and businesses will go all in, or would go all in with one of those newer channels or approaches. And invariably they'd be disillusioned with the results. So that's all changed now with cross-channel marketing. So with these three amplified trends, is there a common denominator? What is that common denominator? And, we're talking about the relationship dentistry, the cross-channel promotion. And of course, it's the patient experience, the PX. It's that modern patient journey. And within this journey and at each stage of the journey, you really have an opportunity to strengthen that patient relationship, to effectively promote and to boost production. So it runs the gamut through practice awareness. How are you known to patients in your community? How do they find out about you? Patient research. How are you found, once you're known? And how are you perceived online? The buying decision, the effectiveness of that first impression the patient has with your dental practice. Then there's your patient lifetime experience and how you can optimize that experience. And then, of course, advocacy. How can patient advocacy be leveraged? So you can see that central to this journey and enhancing this journey and growing practice production is good data and information. And in our case, that's where Practice Zebra comes in, providing that insight. So far we looked at some of the macro trends in dentistry. We looked at the current state and production through COVID and beyond. We also touched on those three amplified trends, and we found the common denominator, that patient experience. So how can a dental team, your team, use this information to make really good business decisions and to outperform and stay ahead of the curve? You can be ahead of the curve. Many of our practices are ahead of the curve. So the answer is truly actionable insights. So let's take a look at these 7 metrics. Some you may be familiar with, but definitely with a fresh perspective. So the left-hand column here are some metrics you may be more familiar with, you may know, and I'm not going to go through these in their entirety because we're going to go through the 7. But these are things like your number of new patients, your average patient value, your high value patients. The things on the right are a bit more insightful, and they're definitely more actionable. And this is where you can truly make an impact on practice results. So let's jump into the first surprising metric. So you may know your new patient flow and how many new patients you're averaging monthly. But what about the number of patients that you're losing or that are lapsing out of your schedule, resulting in either a net gain or net loss? So I'm referring to 2 practices here. Again, data just pulled directly from Zebra, and you can see practice A on the left with a new patient count of 848, and practice B on the right with 722. So on the surface, both of these practices look like they've got a strong and healthy new patient flow and a great trajectory. But then you turn the tables and look at the lost production, the lost patients, those that have dropped off the schedule. And you can see there's clearly a difference. Practice A lost 1,000 plus patients for an overall net patient loss of 173. Practice B, on the other hand, lost far fewer patients. They kept them active, they kept them scheduled. They had 254 for a net gain of 400 plus, 468. So, the interesting thing is, while they both on the surface look very strong in terms of new patient flow, come January 1st, 2020, Practice B is so much better positioned, for success. And Practice A may or may not be aware of it. Of course, they are if they're connected with Zebra and they're working with us to make some corrections. But the first form of prevention is always awareness. If you and your team are regularly visiting and reviewing this data, it becomes part of your collective consciousness and it becomes actionable. So do look to your team for support and assistance. This is how some of our clients and prospects feel when they first see this metric. But again, the good news is that every problem does have a solution, so not to worry. So here we have Metric number two, surprising metric number two, your average patient value versus your new patient value. And you really need to consider this when you're quantifying the COVID production gap that we had in the late spring. So you can see we've got 4 practices here, A, B, C, D. And on the left-hand side, the yellow arrow indicates their average annual patient value. So here they range from 800, 820, 1275. On the right-hand side is the corresponding practice's first year new patient value. And invariably it's double, and in some cases triple the value. So this can be a surprising metric for some practices. Um, and again, when you're looking at quantifying that COVID gap and you see, the loss of new patient flow during that time period, it can actually have a little bit future forward downward pressure, more than you might imagine, because the value of those new patients or loss of those new patients can often be considerable and quite surprising. So what can you do today? You can share this metric with your team so that they do better understand the value of those new patients, and they'll help a lot. So, some of our clients have also done some things early in the recovery of COVID, expanding hours of operation, keeping, dedicated new appointment times, or even days, introducing some more enticing referral programs, and even increasing their marketing spend. So we're going to touch on call handling in a moment, but one way to increase new patient flow without spending another penny on marketing is more effective call treatment at the desk. So this is how your team's going to feel about new patients when they understand the value of them. They're going to coddle them and cuddle them. Surprising metric number 3. So you may be able to pull a list like this of your high value patients or your top 10% of patients, but what can you really do with this information? Maybe you can do a little bit of service differentiation, some white glove treatment. But honestly, once you know where those high value patients are, you can better target your marketing. So looking for like audience, tailoring your message to be relevant and attracting, those ideal patients. You want more patients like your best patients. So if you know where they are, you can do a much better job at target marketing and, on your social channels and direct mail and Google. And when you combine this with, deep demographics, you can, really develop content that's truly relevant to your audience, and you can get a much stronger ROI. So these tools all available in Zebra as well, and you can segment your patient base by value, by location, and it really can make a difference in terms of your marketing ROI. So yes, when you find the right patients, you have a 100% chance of winning. More patients like your best patients. So metric number 4, your in-house membership plan use versus what that growth opportunity actually looks like. So, you may know the production of your membership plan, but what about that growth potential that's still existing within your non-insured patient list? And for some dental practices, membership plan patients drive 2x, 3x, even 4x the value of the non and underinsured patients. So we have, by the way, found, we've got a great relationship with Clear, and we have found that the simpler the plan, the higher rate of adoption and return. So here's a practice, for example, you can see that their average patient yearly value of $1,275, but look at their DMP, or dental membership plan patient value, of $2,635. So considerably greater. Those are valuable patients. They still have, a couple hundred, close to 300 patients that are uninsured right now. So we did the math for this particular practice, and we could see that if they were able to convert 20% more of their uninsured patients to plan, it would considerably boost production. And I think it was in the range of $79,000. So it can make an amazing, amazing difference. And it's a small thing. If you do have a dental membership plan, it's a great idea to promote it across all channels, maybe even using an automated communication cadence to send messages to your uninsured patients at regular intervals, and definitely pre-appointment for sure. So here's some examples. Zebra has this functionality along with a lot of other communications tools. So that could be another area where you could do some production boosting. Metric number 5, and we touched on this just a tiny bit earlier. So this is a current call conversion and versus what might happen with a 10% increase. So these charts are a little tough to read. I'm going to quickly just talk you through it. This is our call conversion what if calculator. And this is straight from Practice Zebra. Again, this is actual practice data. So this is a fairly large practice of production, total production at this practice of 2.7 million. So the chart at the top is the what's happening now. And below is that what if scenario at a 10% improvement. So the yellow arrow that you can see there indicates their current live call answer rate. And the red arrow is their call conversion rate. So you can see this practice is answering 55%, which is a little bit below industry standard, which is just next industry average, just beside that metric at 68%. And it's certainly much lower than the top 10% are performing at 98%, which is the number beside. Likewise, with the conversion, they are converting calls at 64%, which is pretty good, a little bit better than average, but not, of course, at top 10%. Now, what happens down below when you move from 55% live call answer just by 10%, just by 10 points to 65%, and you move your call conversion from 64% up to 74%, again, just 10 points. You can see an amazing difference to their total production value on the bottom right, 800,000 in additional practice production for this fairly large practice, just by moving the needle 10 points on their call answer and call conversion rates. Again, they've spent nothing more on marketing. All they've done is focused on the tools and the front desk. So it really can make an incredible difference. That's the power of data and visibility. And we've got tons of examples of how this can work. So that's a pretty cool one. The face you make when you convert another caller, right? When your team is privy to that data, they understand the goal. Maybe they're even incentivized. You know, this is how they're going to feel for sure. Metric number 6. So percentage of patients scheduled versus top performing offices. And this can be a little bit illuminating as well. You know, we've got a situation here where two similar, practices in terms of, well, I guess they're not that similar really. The practice A has 1,200 active patients, practice B has 3669 active patients. But look at their scheduled rate. And well, maybe that's part of the reason. Practice A, 22% of their active patients are scheduled for an upcoming appointment versus 89% scheduled. So this shows you that, you know, it is doable. The top 10%, as noted down below, currently have a 70% patient scheduled rate. So, you know, patients do need to know that it's safe. They need to know, they must have quite a few more touch points before they're ready to engage. And, you know, look to your team and to reputable partners to help you identify and re-engage with all of your patients of record. And this is where that cross-channel promotion, those automated communications, understanding the data and metrics, just makes such an appreciable difference. And, you know, pulling it all together, this is how, you know, you feel when you beat that top percent, 10%. And you guys can feel that way too. Some of you likely already are. So metric number 7, and this is the final one, active patients versus danger patients. So what the heck is a danger patient? A danger patient has not been seen in 9 months plus and is potentially at risk of leaving or attriting. So here's 2 practices, and these ones actually are quite similar. I can see here, active patient count, active patient base of 5869 in practice A, and on the right-hand side, practice B of 4,900. So the difference is in the percentage of danger patients, the percentage of patients that haven't been seen in 9 months. So practice A, 26% danger, and practice B, 54% danger. That means half or more than half of their patients aren't currently engaged with their practice. So, they're in double trouble. The industry standard for danger patients is very close. It's in around 27%. So practice A is right in around average, and practice B is, currently tracking it at double. So, again, every problem has a solution. So here's another practice that's hitting it out of the park with just 12% of their patient base that's currently in danger. The key, again, is to have visibility so that you can act. You want to isolate those danger patients. You want to be able to communicate with them specifically and personally. So again, when you catch those patients before they fall off your schedule, everyone gets a high five. And at the end of the day, a small change can make a huge difference. So how much added production is sitting in all these metrics? And by the way, I haven't even touched on case acceptance, case conversion. That's another enormous area of opportunity. And all of these, the what if tool I showed you earlier with the call tracking and scoring, trying to quantify these, putting metrics and quantifying to them in these what if scenarios is critical to help you to prioritize. But how much production is just sitting with these metrics? If you could improve by just 10% new patients, active patients scheduled, small adjustments can make huge impacts. You don't have to part the seas to get results. So this is the calculation for a totally average size practice, the 2,000 active patients. And we've looked at a 10% improvement. So a 10% increase in new patient flow, a 10% increase in active patients scheduled, 10% increase in movement to their dental membership plan, 10% improvement in call tracking and scoring for this average size practice, 10% reduction in their danger patients, and again, not even touching their case acceptance, case conversion, and they would be looking at a $300,000 practice improvement, productivity enhancement improvement. So small change, big difference. So in summary, how can you stay and get ahead of that COVID curve? So as I mentioned before, patients really need to know what you're doing to keep them safe. They need to be reminded about the importance of maintaining a healthy mouth and the mouth-body connection. And they need to hear from you a lot. So you need to focus, you'll want to, I use the word need, but you'll want to, you don't need to, you don't have to, but you'll want to focus on your communication plan and engage your team for support. Our top production practices share their metrics and data. They set realistic goals for improvement. Again, very realistic goals and making incremental improvements. Looking at your key metrics regularly and quantifying those opportunities using these types of what if scenarios. And then being able to prioritize those, what's going to make the biggest impact in the short term, midterm, long term. And do remember that a small change can really make a big impact. Be positive. We're the lucky ones. We are part of a resilient industry with an exciting and bright future. We're going to, get over this COVID gap, and we'll be moving into a new dawn with dentistry. There's so many, talked about macro trends. There's so many great enhancements, you know, on the horizon. And once we, you know, surmount this COVID chasm, then and we're on the other side of it, we're just going to be full steam ahead. And you can get ahead of the rest. I'm back to my my rhyming here. Ahead of the rest with Zebra and Best for dentistry. So you're here now, you've done amazing so far, and COVID will be under control. We can get it right and be ahead of the curve, and you can too. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation today. And if I'm able to, I will flip back and for you to see my screen, or see me on the screen rather. Stop share, stop share.
Perfect, thank you.
Back?
Karen, yes, you are. Yeah, I'm going to give everybody some time to type in any questions they have. Something I would, first off, thank you. Lots of good information there. I think something a lot of our practices want to know is, you know, they have all these metrics available through Practice Zebra. And one of the things you mentioned at the end was, you know, engage your team for support. You know, how do you implement these, you know, practices into your office and set attainable goals? Do you have any advice on that?
Absolutely. Well, working with Zebra and working with Patient News, you're assigned an account manager. So you have someone on your team on our side who's helping you sort through the data, the metrics, the priorities, you know, and there's lots of tools right in Zebra itself. There's, you know, a phone power tool. You know, so with the call tracking, scoring, metrics, there's a team training component and a certification component. So not only are there tools, you know, right within Zebra, you also have a dedicated account manager on our side who helps you to prioritize, helps the team to engage, you know, in determining what those goals are and realizing the results. So.
Perfect. And I'm sure they also help where, you know, if there's like we're struggling in this area, or we know that we can improve upon a few things, what's the best marketing strategy to take? You know, is it the direct mail? Is it, you know, do we need to update our website? You know, what?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of tools in our chest for sure. And, you know, we will do just that. We'll do a diagnostic of the practice, and we'll look at, you know, everything from the area demographics. We do a deep dive into who are the consumers, who are the patients within the area, who are the lookalike audiences to our discussion earlier, pinpointing where those best patients currently live. What channels, where are they? You know, and you want to be where those patients are. Interesting, like direct mail is still a cornerstone, you know, for Patient News and our clients. Our best performing practices have that multi-channel approach. And mail is reaching 100% of your patients. You know, when you're looking at email, I mean, all of the channels are important, but the email open rates, click-through rates, you may not be reaching all of those unscheduled patients by way of an email. You know, being in front of your patients where they are right now, they're very much at home, you know, and that's where we'll probably be, you know, for the next several months, it's looking like. So you can reach 100% of your patients in their home. You can reach 100% of your target audience in the community in their homes through direct mail. So it's an extremely viable channel. Just to give you an idea, our average ROI within 6 months is 6 to 1. I mean, you want to look at a minimum of 3 to 1. And many top performing campaigns are getting 15 to 1, 16 to 1. You know, if you head to our website at patientnews.com, you'll see a lot of our client testimonials and kind of the exponential and surprising growth that they've had through direct mail exclusively. And as I mentioned, with the practice management software integration, you get the ROI down to the penny, the patient spend, and how many additional family members came from that one patient who was referred through that channel or through that direct mail piece. So there's no guesswork anymore in terms of, you know, what you're really getting in terms of a return on investment. So the tools are, you know, really enhanced from that perspective.
Yeah, fantastic. So much good information. Can you review one more time the opportunity they have through BEST and then share some contact information?
Absolutely. And I think I just saw a question pop up on the screen there. I don't know if you caught it, but yeah, so patientnews.com, or sorry, Best for Dentistry and Patient News. Best for Dentistry is the only dental community that receives Zebra, all of the functionality that I talked about. So all the practice metrics, all the marketing attribution, all of the communication channels, dental membership plan enhancers, email communications, e-newsletters, all the call tracking, the tools, the phone power, free of charge. So if you're, you know, it could even be replacement technology, you know, and a huge savings for you. If you're using some other tools, let's say, and you want to switch over to Zebra and our reminder service or review booster, and you get that free of charge with your marketing campaign. So whether you're doing direct mail, whether we're doing web services, website, or SEO or paid or social media, whatever marketing efforts we're working on together, Zebra will come with that at no charge for any best practices.
Fantastic. Yeah, such a great. Yeah, it looks like there is one more question. How's the direct mail measured?
Mm-hmm. So we touched on that a little bit, but everything we do either a dynamic phone number insertion, or in the case of direct mail, a phone number, you know, on the piece itself. And then every new patient call that comes in, we listen to those calls and we score them live. So there's some amazing tools in there. And with the practice integration, we do address matching as well. So we know when a new patient comes into your practice that they live in the area, that they received the direct mail, and or they called on the number specific from the direct mail piece. And all of that attribution is identified right in your practice management software. So again, there's no guesswork on ROI and return on investment.
That's great. Oh, one more question. What is entailed in the call scoring?
The call scoring. Okay, so we have a full-time team dedicated to patient news, and there's actually a 25-point scale. It covers 4 key components of the call, and then those things are weighted. And obviously the heaviest weight on a converted new patient appointment. So it's everything from the greeting to overcoming potential patient objections to handling questions like insurance. And it takes it right down to the call handler level. So these calls are scored, and then we can take it down to, okay, let's say, for example, Mary at the front desk, you know, had difficulty answering insurance questions. Well, she can then be referred to the video on handling questions, you know, so there's tools right in there as well. It's not just the identifying the calls, scoring the calls, but it's also helping the team with tools to improve, you know, execution. And that is one of the areas that, you know, the call management that can have just a massive impact on practice production. We talked about those, you know, small changes, big impacts. And, you know, that is one area for sure. Without spending any money on marketing, you can make a huge improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you want to share some contact information before we wrap up?
Yeah, did I? Yeah, well, for sure, patientnews.com, you know, that's our home site. So www.patientnews.com, you can go there. You can also get to us through Best for Dentistry as well, right?
Yep, so through our website, bestfordentistry.com. You can also contact our team via email at info@bestfordentistry.com, or you can give us a call at, let's see if I get this right, 877-669-6320. I've been working from home, so I've been giving out my cell phone. That's our
Okay, I'm happy to give out my cell phone too, if anyone
Yeah,
wants to give me a call. But yes, so we do have someone dedicated on our side, to help explain the programs. Her name is Jessie. So at Patient News, if you want to call Jessie, Jessie knows about the Best for Dentistry partnership and the opportunity that we have together. So it's Jessie Stamp, and she's available and standing by anytime. And honestly, we will take you through a full demo, free of charge. We would do a demographic analysis of the areas surrounding your practice. We would put together a patient communications plan for your review. We could even connect you to Zebra and do an initial metrics review and help you, sort through the data and look at some of the things, that could provide an opportunity for the practice in the short term. But again, keeping in mind, there is a gap in production from the practices that have been marketing centric and patient centric through COVID and the ones that have not. So, it really is critically important as well. And I am not going to doom speak because, as an industry, we're doing great and we are resilient, but there is a gap, in the relevance of the success of different offices. And there's things that you can do to close that production gap and to stay and be ahead of the curve, so we're here to help fill that gap and identify those opportunities.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. Thank you so much, Karen. We really appreciate you taking the time to lead us in this and share all these tips. We've recorded the webinar. We'll be sending it out via email to all attendees. So you can expect to receive that here probably by the end of the day.
That's great. And if you could splice out my flub.
Yeah, it happens.
That would be great. Yeah. All right, Kristen.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch with that follow-up.
Awesome.
Have a good day. Thank you.
You guys have a good one too.
Thanks.